By the late 1920s, Italy had become a massive apparatus of military force. The regime controlled the streets through sheer numbers, maintaining order with a sprawling, uniformed machine. Benito Mussolini sat at the center of this machine. He governed through absolute authority and the constant threat of physical domination. Yet, in 1928, the entire weight of this fascist empire was focused on a single courtroom, where one physically disabled man stood trial alone. The prosecutor looked at the defendant and gave the judges a specific instruction. For 20 years, we must stop this brain from functioning. The target was Antonio Gramsci. He was a journalist and a philosopher from a neglected village in Sardinia. A regime armed with artillery and secret police looked at this one man and decided that silencing his thoughts was more important than winning a war. Gramsci grew up in rural poverty, living with a spinal injury that caused him constant physical pain. He was small and frail, but he spent his youth reading everything he could find. In 1911, he moved to Turin, an industrial hub defined by massive factory complexes and rigid mechanical organization. He watched workers endure 14-hour days and die young in the slums, while the factory owners lived in luxury just a few blocks away. Gramsci focused on a specific numerical reality. The workers produced all the wealth, and they outnumbered the elite 1,000 to 1. He spent his life trying to answer one question. If the poor hold the numerical advantage, why do they continue to accept a system that crushes them? This obsession made him the most effective political organizer in Italy. He founded newspapers and workers' councils, eventually becoming such a threat that the state suspended the law just to arrest him. In 1926, Gramsci was stripped of his parliamentary immunity and dropped into the isolation of Regina Coeli prison in Rome. He responded by requesting a pencil and a series of notebooks. Even as his health failed, he decided his time in a cell would be spent documenting how power actually functions. He realized that traditional theories were missing half the story. Armies and police can control a body, but they cannot maintain a society on their own. This led to his definition of cultural hegemony. Gramsci argued that lasting power is maintained not through fear, but by manufacturing consent. The ruling class uses institutions, schools, media, and religion to control the narrative. They define what is normal and what success looks like. Eventually, people at the bottom believe their place in the hierarchy is natural. They don't need to be forced because they've accepted the system's logic as their own. Cultural hegemony is the most effective weapon in the state's arsenal because it is a form of absolute control that disguises itself as common sense. To counter this, Gramsci proposed the creation of the organic intellectual. He believed the world didn't need more isolated university professors. It needed teachers, journalists, and creators who came from the working class and could translate complex ideas into language that moved ordinary people. Imprisonment destroyed his health. Over 10 years, he suffered through tuberculosis and the total deterioration of his spine, eventually dying just days after his official release. By 1945, Mussolini's regime had violently collapsed, but Gramsci's 33 handwritten notebooks had been smuggled out, beginning their journey into the hands of millions. The fascists successfully stopped his body, but they failed to realize that his mind was a weapon they couldn't lock away. Gramsci's observations applied directly to the world you are living in right now. You likely follow scripts that you treat as common sense, the idea that engineering is the only real career. The pursuit of a safe government job, the rigid timeline for marriage and debt. No one is forcing you to follow these paths with a gun. Instead, these ideas were engineered and then absorbed through your feed, your schooling, and your family. Gramsci's work forces a difficult question. How many of your beliefs did you actually choose, and how many were simply implanted because they were convenient for the system? Antonio Gramsci died in a literal cage, but he left behind the vocabulary necessary to recognize the walls of the one you might still be living in.
About power, identity, and how situations shape who we are, subscribe.